Yo, what's up, y'all? This is Savage, and I'm going to take y'all on a deep dive into the Ableton project for my track One Truth, and show you all a couple of things that I do, how I do them, and hopefully maybe be able to pass on something that you might find beneficial. So here we go. First, here is a quick overview of the whole project. This is what we're looking at. And first and foremost, I really want to emphasize just how important dedicating time to building yourself out a template and then dedicating time periodically to update, improve on, and add and subtract things from your template, all with the intention of improving your workflow and your ability to keep your creative juices flowing as much as possible and keep yourself from having to click around on a computer and dig into files and file folders as much as possible also. I find that tapping into a flow state when doing almost anything creative, but especially music production, is paramount to ending up with a good product at the end and ending up with an authentic product at the end, something that's really the manifestation of that flow state and of pure creativity, and nothing hinders creativity more than having to stop in the middle of flowing and go dig through files or folders or old presets you made and saved here or somewhere. You got to go find them. Nothing stops that faster than that. So what I did and what I do is I dedicate a few hours, probably a month, and just don't do anything except work on my template and develop the systems that work best for my brain to allow me to get into and stay into that flow state when I'm feeling inspired. And so that all starts with kind of, especially if you've already developed your signature sound or if you're working on it, that all starts with developing your own kind of table of ingredients, right? And having a lot of the sounds that you know and love at your fingertips right when you open this template. And I'll show you kind of where that's at. But also, equally important is the way in which you group your tracks, color code your stuff, and just kind of nest groups within each other and just overall organize to where it functions, the way that your brain finds optimal. So, a quick overview of like how I group my tracks is I have my drums group right here. Within that, I have my kick and snare, clap, snap, all that right here. And then I have a percussion group with my percussion. Underneath that, I have my cymbals group and my shakers group. Then I have my sub. Some tracks have more than one sub sound, rarely, but sometimes this is one of those times. Pad. I have like my sub effects if there are any. My live flutes group, my basses group, my vocals group, which in my template has more than 4 tracks. I just delete the unused ones when I'm nearing the end of a project. Then this was at one time a group that I have in my template called MIDI Ideas, which is 4 or 5 MIDI groups with my go-to MIDI plugin, which is Complete Control, because I can access almost all of my other plugins from within it and use my Complete Control keyboard to access and navigate them, without having to touch my mouse or dig through file folders. Underneath my MIDI ideas group, I also have an audio ideas group for if I do find an amazing sound or sample or something, boom, boom, I drag drop it. I don't have to sit here and add tracks and route them and all that kind of stuff. It's all already done and at my fingertips. In my template, I have my strings group, my brass group. This was like one-off recording for my field recorder. This is my throat group, grains, which is just an instance of granite to get some like really metallic kind of effect sounds. This is my actual effect group, rises, falls, stuff like that. My nature effects, which if you listen to my music, I'm sure you've heard that I incorporate a lot of jungle ambience, insect sounds, bird sounds, and stuff like that into my music. Some texture, and then this is the dialogue from One Truth, discussing the holographic nature of the universe, the fact that your perception is all that truly exists, etc. I like to try to get a meaningful message in there and sneak it in there when I can. So moving on up. So first, this is my drums group. You'll notice that there's really nothing on the bus. I used to kind of do a lot of post-processing and group my drums and process them as a chain. And the kind of music that I'm currently making, I like to keep my drum sounds as authentic and dynamic as possible. So there's really no processing on the bus level here. Really don't use much compression on my drums. I try to keep them all as authentic sounding as possible, so I'm not smashing transients or squashing waveforms and all that jazz with my with over compression or over processing when I don't really need to. Here's my kick. I just use mainly DS kick. I rarely use a kick sample these days. I used to really often, but I find that I have a lot more control, and it's a lot faster right here. I'm sure a lot of you know the necessity of keeping your drums tuned to the key of your track, and I can quickly really finely tune my kick drum right here, as well as have super complete control over the envelope and the decay, the attack, the level of drive, and whether or not there's a click on top. Again, you'll see there's really not that much compression or processing right here. Just some mid-side EQ, and I just have split the top and the low end right here, and applied overdrive to the top, and come down here for this snap. If you listen to my music, you're probably familiar with like the width of the snaps and claps that I use often. I'll show you. What's giving that width like that is this delay right here. With each channel has an unsynced delay that's time driven, about 30-ish milliseconds apart from one another in the left and the right channel. And what controls the length of that delay tail obviously is this feedback, and the dry wet kind of controls the thickness of it. And throughout the track I'll automate the feedback right here, and kind of give this like a rolling, increasing feedback. You can kind of hear how that rolls up. This is what it sounds like. And under here, I'm sure a lot of y'all employ this technique already, but this is just the reverse claps, where I essentially just duplicate this track, put on a really long tail reverb, long decay time, kind of route the output of the input of this track to the output of this track, and record it, take that reverb tail, sample it, reverse it, and then line it up right here to where it just kind of sucks back into itself. Like that. And I like to keep all those organized together. And here we get to my percussion group, which again, there's a lot more in the actual template than is right here. So you're kind of limited in a sense to the size of your template with what kind of instruments you use, and as a function of like how powerful your computer is. I ended up a couple years ago building a production PC, and have never looked back. So luckily my PC can handle it, but you can always make adjustments based on the strength of your system, and then you're just, as time goes on, you choose what you can bear to let go of from your template, and make those kinds of adjustments based on the power of your system. But moving on to the percussion, here is how I do that kind of alternating reverby snare situation that ends up on like the 4. It's just a little metal tank synth off to my big reverb return right here, which is a really long FabFilter Pro R reverb, almost 6-second decay time. And if I were to take this off, this sounds a lot different. But when I put it on like that, you get that really long tail, right? So and I just kind of alternate like that. It's important to make sure when you do stuff like that that you EQ the reverb right to where it's not muddy. Let's see. some more cool percussion stuff. I already resampled this to audio and no longer have the MIDI, but this is that kind of reversed metallic groove. And I make a lot of stuff like that. I do have the MIDI for this one, and it's done the same way. I'm going to show you how I do that. I make these little fills like that by just employing like a couple of solid MIDI notes in whatever kind of drum rack you want, really, and putting an arpeggiator on it using various arpeggiator styles, rates, whatever, and then sending that off to reverb and delay returns. So basically it cuts short right there, but then the delay and reverb carries it on, and you can do this however you want. Right now it's set to a 16th note. I can take that and make it faster like that. I can make it triplet bass like this. The possibilities are endless to make your own little fills right there. This is an Udo, because everybody needs one, why not? Here's some tablas right here. I can't stress the importance, if you are trying to program really authentic sounding drums, to use wildly variant velocities, but it's really only effective if you're using good drum sample libraries, because if not, then the velocity will only be controlling the volume. It's basically just a volume control. Whereas good sample libraries, the velocities are actually triggering different samples, different hits of the same drum. It's actually recorded at different velocities, in case you don't know that. So if I had a high velocity, you're going to hear a sound, the recording of that drum being hit very hard, and if it's a low velocity, you'll hear the recording of that drum being hit more softly. As well as round robins. If you're unfamiliar with round robins, it's basically, if I were to play this here note 5 times in a row, it's going to sound the same, but it's actually 5 different recordings of the same hit of the same drum, and then it loops and starts over, and it goes around. So every next time this note is hit, even if it's way over here, it triggers, recording number 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it starts back over. So you get a very subtly different sample each time, and our brains pick up on that kind of stuff, and it really helps to get rid of any kind of MIDI related repetitiveness or robotic kind of sound. And I really like to send off drums like this to long delays and reverbs. Really helps add to the rhythm, especially when you do so in triplets. Here's my cymbals group. These days I'm generally using just DS hi-hat and automating it. Like right here, you will see that I'm automating the decay right here, again, to just add like a more humanistic feel and kind of picture like opening and closing a hi-hat. And it sounds like this. And come right here, good old-fashioned Lex Luger reverse cymbal, because why not? Best thing ever came out of those packs. Those really help smooth transitions, I find. It's like the only one that I use, but it's great. Right here is my shakers group. Come over here, can find the part where the shaker is kind of driving the rhythm, and so shakers are a little tricky to EQ and compress, especially when you want them to be a main driving element, because it's easy to make them too harsh on the top end, and it's equally easy to bury them in the mix. So surgical EQ comes in handy here, when you can find that top end resonant frequency and pull it out, but without spreading the dip too far. That's how you can go ahead and make these things driving rhythms, but without being too harsh. This was just the same thing, but with the pitch lowered. Let's see, moving on to my sub. This sub's a little different than I'd venture to say most of my tracks subs are, but I'll show you, because this one's more like kind of like a hypnotic, really short release sub, like doom doom doom, instead of, you know, like a long hit, but it's still just the same operator, my operator patch, and just with the nice little macros for filter frequency, filter drive, envelope, release, decay, all that jazz. Operator is amazing for sub. It's just your good old fashioned low pass EQ. And this effects rack right here, shout out Ataya. This comes from this rack came from Ataya. That dude's a G. He has basically put in macros all of the go-to parameters for affecting the tone of a subwoofer. It's a really, really awesome tool. So shout out Ataya. That's cool. And then, you know, operator gives you some really thick sub sounds. It's as simple as it gets right there, but it's still powerful. And then over here, got a little saw bass sound. No, I'm sorry. This is the second sub, which does have a long release, and that one's kind of just flows throughout a whole different melody and part of the song. It's that kind of intro. It's that kind of intro sub. There's a little sub impacts. Right, here's my flute. The flute used to record this song is an Odell Borg 432 hertz earth tone bass flute. It's an amazing instrument, this thing right here. I record these flutes with this here mic right here, and I run this through a Blue Robbie preamp, vacuum tube analog preamp. Thing is sick, and it really adds a really nice analog warmth to anything I run through it. But yeah, I'll solo this. And as you can see, it's just mainly I built a live flute patch right here, and it's got a delay, a nice FabFilter Pro R. You'll see me talk about this reverb all the time. It's my favorite. I generally just start with a preset with it because the presets are amazing, and then I'll just change the decay time, the character, the brightness, and the curves here, and obviously the mix on my own, and just kind of tune it to taste. And yeah, when you combine these FabFilter reverbs with delays, it's magical. A lot of compression here, some imaging, and yeah. Again, with the reverses right here, I like to make instruments flow into themselves. You'll hear this. So you can keep the rhythm using these reverses. You can keep the rhythm, but you still keep like this constant underlying flow throughout phrasing and melodies. Here's the basses. Here's that little wub before the dialogue. And then right here is this liquid bass patch that I built. It's really just leveraging macros, controlling two bell curves on Pro Q2. So if I play a note, and you kind of just get like subtle modulation by you know, routing these macros to those parameters of FabFilter. Let's see. Here's that saw bass I was talking about. This is just a simple little operator saw bass. It sounds really simple, almost kind of bad by itself, but when layered, it's subtle. Here's a vocal group. Some more reverses. I name all that reverse at the end. I can know this is. Oh, that was actually like an African children's choir I took a little syllable from and reversed. Here's that throat drop at the end. I cut this up, chopped it up, printed it to audio, cut it up, chopped it, printed it to audio. I have stuff that that's further rhythmizing it. Unless I already resampled it, I should have an LFO tool on here. I might have already resampled. Oh no, here it is. I was giving it a kind of rhythm to it because it didn't naturally have that. So it's kind of following this curve right here at a 16th. Modulating volume. And so I chopped it up, rechopped it, chopped it, printed it, chopped it up, rechopped it, and I do a lot of resampling, and I'll get to why that is in a little bit. And over here, if you look, I have this vocoder automated to bring in a little subtle vocoding, like right before. I love mixing vocoding and throat singing because they're, you know, somewhat similar already. So I bring this right in before the drop. Moving on. This is that other kind of drop flute synth. And this is another reason why I print to audio all the time, because, for instance, in this situation, I'm using a control track to control MIDI effects that are controlling the audio output of this track and then recording the audio output of this track into this track and leaving it as printed audio, because when you start doing complex MIDI routings like this and you're controlling a MIDI track with a MIDI track, you're setting yourself up for failure, because it will eventually, MIDI is finicky, and it will eventually not play back the way that it was 5 minutes ago. So I've learned that the hard way many times, and honestly, resampling is totally worth the extra couple of seconds it takes, because then you can also have really cool creative control over reverb tails and stuff too, and like cut them short, which is an awesome effect and all that kind of stuff. But this is this sound. Which was resampled and resampled and resampled and affected, and that's how you get all these stutters and the flanging and all that stuff. This one I left it MIDI because I'm doing a lot of automation right here for reverb, for filter frequency, gain automation, another big reverb, and this is kind of that build up. Jumps into that right there. I like to really fine tune my build-ups and with stuff like this, and get it exactly how I want it. So those things I do leave as MIDI. This is another reverse for you right here. Let's see. This string right here is pretty cool because it's just a bendy little string sound. But I modulated it with a wild vowel filter, so it goes from like E to A and back and forth. Let me see if I open this right here. The band reject vowel filter, pretty high resonance, and it just kind of modulates back and forth and gives the string like a talking sound. This is just another little string instrument right here. A little pitch bend on it. Let's see, I like, yeah, it's just a little pitch bend right there, and like right here, it's just the extra little effects. I like to really texture stuff, and it's a combination of a whole bunch of small details that kind of shape my music. Kind of sits in the background right there. Let's see, this is the whistle Icaro. I mailed my field recorder to a Peruvian curandero, and she recorded this with my field recorder way far from her mouth, so it was quite the adventure getting this up to par to be able to use it. I had to import it into Isotope RX7 and do some repair to it. I had to apply a whole bunch of gain, which causes problems in and of itself, obviously, which I then had to go and repair after the fact. But this is a perfect example of surgical EQing, because a whistle is loaded with harmonics and air. So you got to isolate the tonality from the air and make sure you can also get it to sit well in the mix, because by nature a whistle is, kind of soft, really. So here, and then compression, and then another surgical EQ here. And the way that you go about this, and the way I make these decisions, is by taking a small band like that, ramping it up, squeezing the Q, and then sweeping the spectrum like this. And when you hit the frequency that's like ear piercing and just terrible, you've found one of the resonant frequencies, and then you just do the opposite. Now you cut that band out a bit. How much is to taste, or depending on what you're trying to fix. How wide the Q is depending on what you're trying to fix, and making sure you don't drown it out by making it too wide. This is supposed to be very narrow bandwidths that you're cutting out here. So, yep, and then we got the whistle sounding good. Those Icaro's medicine songs are just something that's truly magical, and I'm very grateful that people were willing to record those for me. And here's a throat group right here. This is I'll solo it first. Just recorded some throat singing and then side chained it really heavily with the intention of purposely giving it that pump sound, and then chopped it up. And then that leads right into the dialogue. And then right here, just like a quick little omnisphere chord to help build tension during that build up. I'll solo it first. So it's almost out of key on purpose. And see, like, that's the only place that'll appear in the track. I like sprinkling one-time things in like that when it makes sense. Again, this is an instance of granite. It's just a little quick metallic kind of effect. I'm gonna just blow through that, and then textures. And what I do on that one? Oh, that sound I got with just a simple chorus. Automating a couple of things right here on the chorus. You can really get like a wobbly kind of see, like that's the LFO. So yep. And then just your little falls and little water effects right here. And so this is something cool. This is this texture that I got, and I warped it, and you can hear that kind of warpy sound. But what I did with it down here, same sound, is I quantized the transients and made it into a rhythm. So if you look right here, and then so in context, that would be like a part of the rhythm in the background. It sounds really trippy on headphones. You can hear it right here in the first couple of beats. It just really kind of helps to drive the rhythm. And then my nature effects and stuff, I use random insect one-shots and different stuff right here, and little sections of stuff like that. And here's Juliet.
As circuits of electromagnetic exchange bind us together as one living ocean of psychosensory, co-creative space-time coordinates.
Yeah, she's amazing. I like to sprinkle stuff like that into my music when I can. some heavy lessons in there about the holographic nature of the universe and the fact that your perspective is all that exists, right? But I think that's it. This is my track, One Truth. Thank you to everybody who's been jamming my album, my Solstice album. Super tight. I really appreciate all the support it's been getting. I was like blown away, and still am. It's only a few days out, and yeah, thanks so much, and I hope to see you guys soon. Peace.